sharing some great jazz records today that you can find in record stores or maybe on eBay pretty affordably. Maybe because they're a little undervalued, maybe because these albums are a little underrated, maybe because these LPs are on obscure labels that people just don't necessarily know about. So if you like this kind of thing, if you like the kinds of albums I'm putting before you, I encourage you to hang out. I encourage you to like, subscribe, spill the blood of your firstborn, whatever the YouTube algorithm necessitates to elevate my fledgling channel to the masses. Yeah, let's look at some records. You know, I don't often feature Miles Davis. I think his records are sort of too expensive for this channel and for the theme. But this is really one of my favorite Miles records, and I think it's kind of gone under the radar. This is a live set at the Blackhawk in San Francisco. There's actually another one of these. This is Friday night. There's another one that's Saturday night. While this 6i, I wouldn't necessarily call this cheap heat. I see this as a two record set pretty frequently, and it is quite inexpensive. So if you see this, I definitely encourage you to check this one out. Micky Tucker, theme for a Woogie Boogie, a obscure set on an obscure Japanese label called Bannan that I don't really know anything about. I have, of course, talked about Micky Tucker before. This record I've shown is called Mr. Mysterious. It's one of my favorite on the Muse label. Very inexpensive. Absolutely recommend picking that up. Micky Tucker reminds me quite a bit of Horace Silver and his playing. In addition, like Horace Silver, he's also a great composer. You know, on his albums, he's not playing standards here. He's really playing his own compositions. Micky Tucker, if he came on the scene maybe 20 years earlier, he'd probably be a name a lot of people know. You know, the reality is he's pretty under the radar. So take advantage of that when you see his stuff. It's pretty cheap. Pick him up. Melvin Sparks, Sparkling. This is on Muse. A cool LP from a great guitarist. I really know Sparks more as a sideman. This record, for example, he often appears with Idris Muhammad. This is Black Rhythm Revolution. This was just reissued. Or this record with Rusty Bryant, also Idris Muhammad on this, Soul Liberation. This has actually gone up in price a bit in recent years, but you can still find it if you're patient for a very good price, and I'd recommend it. This is a great LP. But I like this album from Melvin Sparks. It's pretty straight ahead. It has some Latin stuff going on. As a guitarist, he really reminds me of this guy, actually, Lightning Hopkins. His tone is sort of plucky, sort of twangy, and even the last track on this LP it's a blues track, which is pretty cool. So if you see this, it's worthwhile. Pick it up. I think it's like $15 or something. Here we have Abbey Lincoln, her album Golden Lady, which features Archie Shepp. This is on Inner City. This is one of those vocal jazz albums that even if you're not into vocal jazz, this is kind of one of those exceptions, right? This is a older Abbey Lincoln. The music is a little more raw. The band is a little more loose, right? It's not just kind of playing in the background and supporting the vocalist. It's sort of doing its own thing. It reminds me a lot of the track Lush Life on this album. This, of course, is one that a lot of people know, especially where Coltrane and the band just kind of take off, you know, and they really elevate just the music to another level. A lot of Abbey's album is like that as it falls down. And in any case, if you see this, check it out. It's I think you can get it for $15. Definitely worth getting. Abbey Lincoln Golden Lady. Bohanan, Getting Off, funky, disco mania driven by Bohannon's signature stomp phrasing on the drums. I'm a big proponent of Bohanan on Dakar. I've talked about him before. I'm collecting a lot of his records on Dakar. I almost have all of them. I'm missing Stop and Go, of course, which is the most expensive and hard to find. But really, all of these, I think if you see these kicking around, I recommend them. They're just a lot of fun. They're funky. They're disco-y. They're cheap. Easy pickups, in my opinion. Check out Bohanan. Earl Hines, it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. So this is actually a swing LP. But because it's a small ensemble, I actually think it's a lot more approachable to a modern listener than big band, which I think sort of scares people away these days. It's just not in vogue, right? Perhaps the most significant player on this album isn't featured on the cover, and that's the great Papa Joe Jones. Not to be confused with Philly Joe Jones. Papa Joe Jones is sort of the father of modern drumming, which is sort of a crown I think that goes to guys like Max Roach. But really, he was very influenced by Papa Joe Jones, who innovated things like riding on the hi-hat instead of just thumping on a bass drum, using brushes, turning drums more into a musical instrument that is dynamic and has accents. Anyway, this is a cool LP. I got this at Human Head. I was in New York recently. I picked it up for like $2. So if you see this, check it out. Kenny Drew, Everything I Love. This is just Kenny Drew on piano. And I really like this record. It's just a nice, beautiful solo piano record with great playing. It's of course on Inner City. I show Kenny Drew probably way too much. I show records like this. Kenny Drew with Niels Henning Orsted Pedersen. By this time, of course, he's in Europe and he's recording in, Stockholm. A lot of this stuff is coming out on Steeplechase, and in the US it's being reissued on Inner City. Anyway, you can find this record for like $8. And if you see it, beautiful record, definitely pick this one up. So straying just a little bit from the cheap heat theme, I did want to talk a little bit about my trip to New York. I did go to New York. I went to some record stores. I got some cool records I just wanted to share. I went to Ergot Records in Manhattan. I picked this up, a really clean copy of Giant Steps on Atlantic, the green and red label. I have actually an earlier copy of this. As you can see, it's a little worse for wear. But my tip specifically for Atlantic would be just get these 70s green and red reissues, because they're the best price. And honestly, I find with Atlantic, the way they recorded jazz artists and even the production of the LPs is not that great. At least not compared to, say, Blue Note and Playstyle and Rudy Van Gelder. And maybe someone will correct me and kind of say, no, that's actually not true. But I don't think you have the same incentive to pay up for these early LPs as other labels. So anyway, record tip, check out the green and red Atlantic labels. On my way to New York, I drove through Pittsburgh, one of my favorite cities, and I picked this up at Attic Records. This is an original of Sonny Rollins on Impulse. And really with some of these Impulses, if you're into originals and you like originals, you can find them on Impulse for not that much. Like this is $40, which I think is pretty good. And there's a lot of things on Impulse like this record. I see this Art Blakey jazz record going pretty affordably all the time. And it's one of my favorite on Impulse and one of my favorite Art Blakey records. So another record tip, buy Impulse records. One of the record stores I was really most nervous about visiting was Human Head. just because I had heard so much about that store. It's so storied, and you don't want to go somewhere and you hear about it and it kind of sucks. And I gotta say, I did go, and oh, it's actually pretty awesome. I think the hype is justified. Uh, I think they're pretty famous for their budget bins, which were pretty good. I mean, I found some things in there, but really just their stock in general. The things they have just in the regular bins are just sort of like wall records anywhere else. And in addition to that, they have a bunch of wall records. Um, so everything is priced pretty fairly. And even if it wasn't, you know, I'm going up to the register and the guy in like his, he's on brand with like his little beanie hat. I don't know if you've ever seen that guy. And he's giving me money off, and he gave me this cool like free tote bag, which he didn't have to do. So yeah, it was a cool experience. Um, Record tip: go to Human Head Records in Brooklyn. Definitely the best in New York, from in my opinion. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling. That's all I got for today, folks. Until next time.